Hello everybody out there. Today we're going to be talking about an emotion called regret. Not a very useful emotion if you're going through divorce or you're post-divorce. So if you're ready for episode 164, let's get started.
Hey Jeff.
Hello Doreen, how are you?
It's been a trying day.
I think it's been a 24-hour day and it's been nothing but successes and progress. Because when you're having difficult days, that means you're making the most progress. That's the way I look at it.
Thanks, Coach.
Coaching the coach.
Okay.
Hey, what's that static in the background?
Oh, it's pouring outside.
It's pouring down, raining outside. You might see lightning, you might see thunder. But as you may remember from last week, we do our podcast from our living room in sunny, well, not so sunny, South Florida.
Right, and so you can check us out on YouTube as well.
Yes.
And I have Zen here, and hopefully he's going to be nice and calm.
He's the producer.
Zen's our little Frenchie. Yeah. Anyhow, so regret. We're going to talk about regret, which we know is not a very useful emotion, and it has us basically worrying and stressed. And the bottom line is that we're usually regretting over something that already occurred or maybe didn't occur. In the case of many of our listeners, it has to do with the divorce, what some will consider the breakdown of the marriage or the failed marriage, which I always take an issue with, as you know.
Right. Well,
saying that a marriage failed because the marriage didn't fail 100%, right? I'm sure everyone out there who is going through divorce or went through divorce had good times in their marriage, right? Either you have children together, you had good experiences, you loved each other at some point. There are good things. So failed marriage, I don't really like that. Yeah.
There's typically not one incident that takes down a marriage. It's usually years and years and years of some things that are going on. Right. But when it comes to regret, I think you're thinking about decisions that you made or decisions that you didn't make, and you're disappointed about those things.
Absolutely.
That happened in the past that you really can't do much about.
No, I think one of the most important things is, I think that we've learned this as we've developed our coaching skills throughout the years, is that there are no real wrong decisions. Right?
That's true.
You want to explain that more?
Well, there's two concepts that deal with that. The first one is you are where you are because that's where you're supposed to be.
Right.
You make the mistakes that you're supposed to make. You make the decisions or not the decisions that you're supposed to make or not supposed to make. So I think that they're not really anything you should regret because you are where you are because you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'd like to add that we talk a lot about when you have the emotion of regret, so it is an emotion.
Right.
Right. I think it helps to start or to understand that life is a balance. We talk about 50-50, both a perspective of good and bad, right? Good things happen to us. Bad things happen to us. Mm-hmm. Some we control on some level, some we do not. So when you look at regrets and you can identify what those are, and you combine that with the balance in life of good and bad, right? Mm-hmm. I think that it can almost be calming, have an effect of calmness on you, just to know that this is just part of the human experience.
And if you think about it, for every wrong decision you're going to make, then you're going to make a right decision.
Right.
Or for every correct decision or action you do, you're going to have eventually a bad action that balances out that 50-50.
But when you think about regret, or your regrets, right? It's really interesting because if you look at things that maybe you could have done different, didn't do right, whatever it is for you, those decisions, those regrets led you down a path, right? And that path took you in a direction. And some of what you probably have today that are the good things, the great things that you love in your life or that you enjoy, are a result of a decision that you made or didn't make that you looked at as a regret that now has become something positive.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It sounds like we call that a learning process.
Right.
You know, when you make a mistake or you think you've made a mistake and then maybe a similar situation comes in front of you, you're going to remember those decisions you made in the past and make maybe a different decision or maybe you like the same decision, but that regret can become a positive learning experience.
Absolutely. So I think that's really important to recognize that, you know, meaning recognize when you're having that feeling of regret, that emotion, and identifying what it is that you're regretting. You know, a lot of times you might feel like you regret something, but you don't really understand it, right? But you haven't really worked it through. Because I think you also have to look at, well, if I would have made a different decision, or if I would have done something different, or even if I would have taken action where I didn't, and that's the regret, what would that course have looked like versus where you are?
I can easily give you an example of that. Okay, I have been known to regret my first marriage. However, looking at it proactively, if I didn't have that marriage, didn't have that divorce, I don't think I would have met you. I don't think we would be married today, and as happy as I am today. So that marriage led me to you, ultimately, if you look at it with an open mind and a learning mind.
Right.
And that's kind of the way now, as a coach, I'm looking at a lot of things that I've regretted in my days, or a lot of things that I've made decisions, or maybe some things I wish I had thought of or wish that I made decisions to do, that I look back and say, well, you know what? Again, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, I'm here now and I am who I am because of those decisions.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I'm going to use business as an example because, you know, I'm running the 2 law firms right now and we work together, you know, in life after divorce coaching and all of that. And decisions in business are made all the time, right? And sometimes you make a decision, let's say to place a specific ad or hire somebody or whatever it looks like, right? And so you're making decisions, hopefully with thought, and then it doesn't work out. Let's say you hire an employee, you think that you cross all the T's, dot all the I's, they seem great, and then it just doesn't work out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can regret that decision of hiring that employee, but it's part of business. It's part of business to make decisions, and then some work out, some don't work out. You know, it's that constant trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
But that's with any goal, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's with any goal. I'm just using business as an example. And so if I stopped making decisions, where would I be? Right? You can't regret decisions because that is just part of who we are as the humans. We have to make decisions. We have to decide to do, not do certain things to move forward with any goal that we have.
Kind of reminds me of our definition of failure. You know, failure is a good thing and that it helps us to learn, helps us to move forward. So if you have failures that you regret, maybe it's your thought about the regret that you need to check out.
Yeah.
So in other words, if your thought is, that was a good thing because I learned from it, I'm not going to make that mistake again. Actually, we're more successful now because I got rid of that person I hired, or now we hired this other person, and they're so much better.
Exactly.
You know, so if you think about it in the right way and have the correct thoughts that serve you, then the regret can be a positive thing. Again, you have better results.
Right. I think a lot of people that are listening, you know, obviously are regretting things in their marriage that they did or they didn't do. Or they're regretting maybe things that happened during the divorce process. You know, maybe they over litigated or they weren't reasonable, or it affected their children on various levels, whatever those regrets look like. I think there's a lot of regret when it comes to divorce in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot. It's one of those areas that you're going to see more of that. I think it's really important to not beat yourself up. You know, because I think a lot of times regret comes with a lot of self-guilt and self-sabotage and really being cruel to yourself because you think, well, I could have done this differently or whatever it is, right? And I think the first thing to do is to really be kind to yourself, to be forgiving of yourself. You know, if you've ever had a good friend, for example, regretted something they did to you, right?
Yeah.
They're sorry for it. I regret that I called you that, or we had a fight, or whatever it is. Sometimes we tend to be so much more forgiving to someone like a friend than we are to our own self. And I think it's really important when you're going through divorce and you're recovering from divorce that you always give yourself that break. Just like you would your friend. Think about, if I was talking to my best friend, what would I be telling her or him?
Right.
Right? I always think that there's an opportunity to learn. And that's the most important thing when you're dealing with regret is to learn, you know, yeah, maybe I regret it. Maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should. Look what happened as a result. Not beat yourself up, and then learn from it as to what you might do different.
And you can still do something about it. Maybe extend that olive branch to your friend,
true.
or make amends with somebody that you, maybe your ex-spouse, and say, you know, at one time we had this, you know, it didn't end very well, but let's think about what we do have, maybe for the children or for our own emotional health. Let's get on with our lives and stop living in regret.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of different areas of regret that you can, if you really feel it's the right thing to do for whatever reason. Hopefully you're doing it primarily for yourself. Not, in other words, not just for someone else. Like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, extend that olive branch because I know it'll make her or him feel better or whatever it is. I want it to come, I would suggest it come from a place of honesty and sincerity. But I think you're right. I think there's a lot of times that you can regret something and you can make it better.
In a lot of cases, I'm not going to say most, but in a lot of cases that I've dealt with clients and with people that I've known where they have forgiven others, it's amazing how the true emotional benefit goes to the one that gave the forgiveness. So in other words, if you forgive somebody for something they did to you, you're going to reap in the benefits more than the person you forgave, because you were the bigger person and all that weight came off of your shoulders, all that animosity, all that regret, everything came off your shoulders, and it's like, I can breathe now.
Well, but you might still have the regret, Jeff. I mean, you might feel a sense of, you know, I took the higher ground, or what do they say? What's the expression?
Higher ground.
Right, and I extended that olive branch, or I tried to make it right, you know, whatever that looks like. But that may not help with the regret that you're still feeling. It might help you feel better, but the regret of the decision and what happened might still be there.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that is part of the healing process, I guess.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it might help. I mean, I you know, we're human.
Yeah.
We're not all going to make perfect decisions in life. That's just not possible. It's not doable. And to think that every decision that you've made, and we make probably, you know, I'm sure there must be some stat on this, but we must make hundreds of decisions every day. Some are big, like hiring an employee or getting divorced. Those are decisions.
I'm sure there's more than hundreds if you count getting out of bed.
Well, I wasn't finished.
I know.
And then you have the smaller decisions like getting out of bed on time, eating a particular thing, all the things, picking up the phone, not picking up the phone, answering an email, like all the things, right? There's no possible way that you can't have regret when you make so many decisions on a constant basis. Now, I guess you could hide in a cave and never make a decision, never reach out to anybody, never put yourself out there, and then you would never deal with a regret. But you also would have a very boring life.
Yeah, never accomplish any goals, never to get anywhere in life.
Exactly. You would just be, basically like a zombie sitting there.
Well, remember the old saying that resistance makes us stronger. So that resistance of accepting that you're going to make mistakes, accepting that there's going to be faults and regrets, and actually, like we teach in failure, look forward to those.
Yeah.
Because you can't be successful without them.
Well, but I think regret is a little bit different. It's a lot different than failure. Failure is you tried something and it didn't work. Now, getting to the heart of the reason why is another issue.
Right.
But regret is I made a bad decision. This is what you're thinking. Like your thought is, I made a bad choice, a bad decision, and I regret that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's different than failing at something.
Yeah, well, what I think I meant was failure can be seen as I regret I failed, but not necessarily regret can be a failure.
Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, I can regret not going to college, but that could be maybe not necessarily a failure.
Right.
But maybe some of the failures in my life could be because I regret not having gone to college to learn these things. So it could be one way or not the other, but it's all in your thoughts. It's all in your thoughts. The way you think about something could be perceived as a failure and you regret it, or it could be I regret it, but I'm still successful.
Well, I think that's the important thing is if you made a different choice, when you're thinking about your regret and when it's really bogging you down, because it can be overwhelming.
Yes.
I mean, you can live in a state of regretfulness that can really pull you under, right? And really swallow you up and be almost debilitating at times. And so I think the important thing to do, especially when you have regrets about your marriage and your divorce, is what would have happened if I made a different choice? The one that you think you regret, if you made the other choice to stay in the marriage, to not file for the divorce, right? To maybe not litigate a particular issue or whatever it is. If you made a different choice, kind of think through what would that look like? Where would it be then? Take the best case scenario of that even, compared to where you are now. Because I think that the things that we regret are the things that also build us up and can make us stronger.
Right.
Because we're learning, hopefully we're learning, and we're trying to make a next decision more carefully and not get paralyzed by the regret. Because I think some people get paralyzed when they have too much regret.
Yeah.
They're just so afraid to make any decisions because they're so afraid they're going to regret it. That happens a lot for people when they, after the divorce, and they're starting to date, and they start to, fall in love, let's say, and they're like, wait a second though, I really regretted getting married because I got divorced, and I regret that, and so I don't want to get married again, and it debilitates them from moving forward. So I think you have to come to peace with it.
Yeah, and you hear often, I regret not getting divorced sooner.
So play that out though.
Yeah.
If you have that type of a regret, oh, I wish I would have divorced a year earlier, then think about all the opportunities, people, experiences that you would have missed if that would have been your choice. So regret is really, as you started this whole podcast, I think you said it's just a very unuseful emotion.
Yeah.
It doesn't really serve any purpose. Sometimes an emotion can really lift us to a higher level, like even sadness and anger. Regret is one of those ones that it's like, and so.
I consider it like a waste. When you regret something that you have no control over, you're burning energy calories. You're burning your energy.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are going in the wrong direction. And again, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, where you are is where you're supposed to be. Now, maybe that's a little heavy for some out there, and a little,
Woo-woo.
woo-woo.
A little woo-woo.
Woo-woo.
No woo-woo.
We make the decisions that we're supposed to make at the time we make them.
Yeah.
Okay, and I truly believe that. You may give a higher value to your regret than you should. If you devalue it.
What do you mean?
In other words, you may really put a lot of value on regret that you married your spouse.
Right.
And really blow it out of proportion and really let
get
it
stuck in
control
it.
your life.
Yeah, get stuck in it.
It gets stuck, and you
debilitating.
give it a lot of value.
You spend a lot of time and energy stuck there and thinking about it.
Yeah. Or you can say,
You can't undo it, right?
Yeah,
you can't undo it. You can only learn from it. You can only forgive yourself. You can only be kind. You can only remember that you are a human, which means you are not perfect. There is no perfect. And that life is both good and bad. I mean, it is what it is.
And what else you say? It's also a
What?
dress rehearsal.
It's not.
It's not a dress rehearsal.
It's not a dress
Right,
rehearsal.
right. Yeah, it's not a dress rehearsal. We only have one life to live
On Earth,
on Earth.
right?
Well,
On Earth.
About another planet.
Well, I'm talking about the afterlife.
I know, I'm talking.
People are spiritual and they believe in what they believe, and that's a beautiful thing. And I think it helps. That's another subject.
Yeah,
but
well, let's not regret that you don't believe in it.
what's that?
The life after life.
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
I have
Well,
no idea what you're talking
I
about.
would regret saying that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So.
But anyhow, so that is it.
Okay, that's it. Well, I want to thank everybody out there for listening to our podcast and watching our podcast on YouTube.
Yes, it's fun. If you have any questions, comments, or have anything that you would like us to talk about specifically, either legally, me as a lawyer from Florida, or coach-wise, or moving on, dating tips, all the things. Look, I've been doing this 30 years. I've been coaching for a long time as well. Jeff and I have been through our own experiences of divorce, some good, some bad, some we regret, but we move on. And we're here for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much value in just talking to somebody.
Absolutely.
So again, you get a 30-minute free call, free coaching call if you just book your call on the website.
Yeah, call us just to shoot the shit.
Yeah,
You
love
know
to hear
what
what
I'm
you have to
saying?
say about our podcast.
Yeah, we would love that. So take us up on it. We're always available to reach out to.
There you go. Till then, we'll see you next week.
All right, everybody, have an amazing week.
Bye-bye. Don't forget to follow us on social media for more empowering content, tips, and inspiration to help you thrive after divorce. And if you're ready to take the next step in your journey, don't miss out on our free 30-minute coaching session. It's a great opportunity to get personalized guidance and support for wherever you are in your divorce journey. Just visit the link in our description to book your appointment.